This short film is about the making of a coffee table for the first British Coffee Festival in Bath in 2010. When I first started designing and making furniture in the early 70s, I specialised in making coffee tables and rocking chairs, as I thought every home should have one. Back in 1984, I did participate in a major exhibition of coffee tables at the London Coffee Information Centre, and I put on show my zigzag table, which is a unique centre joint. The table was first designed in 1978. In 1990, the Royal Botanical Gardens at Kew gave a handful of furniture makers, including myself, trees blown down in the Great Storm of 1987. And I made my Man and Nature table from an ash tree grown at Kew. So I was thrilled to be invited to show some of my unique coffee tables at the Bath Coffee Festival. I decided to make something special and use a piece of sycamore cut from Westonbirt Arboretum about 3 years ago, and which has been drying out in my workshop since. And my task was to enhance the natural beauty of the wood and also use my favourite tool, the router. When I wrote the incredible router book in 1989, it probably triggered a multi-million-pound industry, as before my book was published, the router was regarded as merely a grooving tool. But in my book, I claim the router is the most versatile tool in the world, and an example is how it can be used for engraving. So I decided to use my router on the Bath Coffee Festival table. Now what I'm doing here is highlighting the annual rings, or the growth rings, that are depicted, because this is actually the formation of a branch on this sycamore, this piece of sycamore, and so each of these is an annual ring. So you can depict, here we go back to the Magna Carta. No, we'd probably go back to 100 years or so. And I'm going to depict this with a very, very fine groove, which is a feature of my work, highlighting using light and therefore shadow to, as I say, depict the groove all the way around. And I'm just deciding whether I want to highlight all the grooves, because if I highlight all the annual rings, then in a sense I'm taking them away. Whereas if I just do a few and then leave nature to tell its own story and leave the other ones intact and flush, then it would be a nice contrast between man and nature. Well, I probably look like a surgeon, but I'm actually in my woodworking operating theatre. Saw please. Ankle. Nurse please. Now another feature of this table is to do something with the heart shake in the centre of the tree, which is inevitable that it shrinks and breaks out like this as the wet tree dries out, because this wood hasn't really been seasoned other than left in my storage yard for a couple of years to kind of eventually stabilise and then bring it into my workshop. But you can't hide a feature like this, so you might as well enhance it, and I'll probably just sand it with some glass paper around just to soften the edges, and then sand the whole surface, and as I say, highlight some of these annual rings. Interestingly, in all the 30 plus years I've been making furniture, it would be unthinkable that I would have a crack or a knot in the wood. Your work would be instantly dismissed from an exhibition, and yet it's in the natural living tree. And isn't it interesting how opinions and taste changes, that now, because we're more ecologically, environmentally aware, that we look to the natural material. And this is exactly what happens in nature. That the living tree will crack and shrink. We've even got some more radial cracks here as well that are perfectly natural. I mean, I suppose you could argue that as a coffee table you could get grunge or coffee spillage down these, but you know, who cares? This is a work of art, for heaven's sake. And you know, in my film about Alan Peters, the maker's maker, there's an interview with him where he's describing using a part of the tree that you shouldn't really have used, which is a knotty part, and yet it was the most beautiful part of the tree. So if it's beautiful, why not use it? And of course the thing is that fine cabinet making has got strict traditions, and yet wood sculpture and art have their own set of rules. The goalposts change slightly, but it's nice to overlap sculpture and art. But who knows how this will turn out? It's very much evolving. I mean, sycamore's got a lovely silky kind of grain, and I'm really looking forward to the final finish. I'll probably use a bit of colour stain either on the flutings or on the highlighted letters. Okay, well, this is day 2 of the Bath Coffee Festival table, and what I'm doing is I'm sanding the flat surfaces. And it's interesting, here we've got some what we call end grain, and it's kind of quite mottled, and it's called spalted, and it's actually highly decorative, although it's partly the beginnings of a rotting tree. What's happened was a piece of sycamore has been left out in the open, and the damp has got at it, and it's created this spalted effect, which actually is highly decorative. Now, in the famous words of Michael Caine, not a lot of people know that. Watch the space and come and listen to Gary and myself play these guitars that we've just made at the Bath Coffee Festival.
As you can see, my one here is for the classical side. This one's for jazzes, more for gypsy jazz and good playing. They're both similar but different in styles, and you've got some really special sounds coming out of these.